You guys just did an amazing job learning about similes and using that keyword like when we're comparing things. So we're still going to look at our story, Feathers Not Just for Flying. And who can remind us again, what was this story mainly about? Right, it was about how feathers are used for more than just one thing. There's a lot of different jobs for the different types of feathers. Now, in our story at the end, there's something called the author's note. In some texts, the author will give you more information about how they made their story and why they wrote it. So I want you to listen about what our author says in her notes. So listen about what Melissa Stewart did for her research. It says, while I was doing research for another book, I stumbled across a fascinating article in Birder's World. It describes some of the amazing ways birds use their feathers. I knew this would be a great topic for a children's book, so I photocopied the article and pinned it to the idea board in my office. A few months later, I dug into the research. As I do for all my books, I turned to 3 main sources for information. The library, so that's where she gets her books, magazines, and newspapers. The internet, so she can get journal articles and locating experts in the field. And her own nature journals. So again, she goes to the library, she uses the internet, and her own journals. Some examples in this book are based on my personal observations in the natural world. Others come from interviews with scientists as well as reports in scholarly books and scientific journals. For me, research is the easy part of a project. The hard part is figuring out the most interesting ways to frame the material. I'm always asking myself, is there a way I can make this even more engaging? For this book, I spent 3 years tinkering with the text. I wrote countless drafts and did 4 complete overhauls before I finally latched on to the idea of comparing feathers to common objects in our lives. That's when the writing came to life, and I knew the manuscript was ready for my editor. So we got a lot of information about Melissa. So where did she say she would get her information from when she writes her stories? There are 3 places she uses. Right, she does the library. What else? Right, she does the internet. And what was the last thing she said? Right, she uses her own journals. And she said that writing was getting the ideas and research the easiest or hardest part. Right, that was the easiest part. The harder part was when she had to actually write the stuff down to figure out how to make it interesting. Because she didn't want it to be boring. She wanted to make sure we were interested in it. And she decided again to do what with the feathers? What did it say she decided to how she wrote her story? Right, to compare the feathers to things that we actually see. We see blankets, we see pillows, we see whistles. We know what those things are so we can relate to it. So she wanted to make sure we understood what she was talking about. Great job listening to the author's note. Again, the author's note is something that some texts have either at the end or in the beginning to give us more information about their book and why they wrote it.